You are not broke because you don't earn enough. I know that's uncomfortable. I know some of you are already reaching for the back button, but I need you to stay just for a few minutes, because if that sentence made your chest tighten, this video was made specifically for you. Let me back that up with something real. The median household income in the United States right now is over $74,000 a year. That is, by every global measure, an extraordinary amount of money. And yet, 64% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. Not people scraping by on minimum wage. We're talking about households earning $80,000, $100,000, $130,000 a year, paycheck to paycheck. So the income isn't the problem. The problem is three specific mistakes, three invisible patterns baked so deeply into how we think about money that most people never question them. And the truly dangerous part, the part that makes these mistakes so costly, is that they feel completely rational. They feel responsible. They feel like the right thing to do. That is exactly what makes them so devastating. Before we get into the three mistakes, I want to give this a name, because once you see the pattern, you'll see it everywhere. In your own decisions, in your friends' decisions, in the way our entire consumer culture is designed. I call it the comfort trap. Here's the idea. Picture a path through a forest. It's well worn, packed down by millions of footsteps over generations. Your parents walked this path. Your neighbors are on it right now. Your coworkers, your siblings, the people you grew up with. And the path feels safe because it's familiar. It's the path everyone takes. Nobody questions it. But familiar isn't the same as right. And well-worn isn't the same as wise. The comfort trap is what happens when the socially accepted way of handling money quietly leads you somewhere you never intended to go. Not because you were reckless, not because you were stupid, but because you followed the path without ever asking where it actually ends. Today we're going to look at where it ends, and then I'm going to show you the fork in the road you've been walking past without seeing it. Let's start with mistake number one. Mistake number one, treating income like wealth. Let me tell you about two people. Marcus earns $95,000 a year. He drives a financed car, a nice one, the kind that makes a statement in the parking lot. He rents a beautiful apartment in a desirable neighborhood. He goes on 2 vacations a year, eats dinner at real restaurants 3 or 4 times a week, and his wardrobe is full of things he actually wears. On social media, Marcus's life looks excellent. At dinner parties, people assume Marcus is doing well, really well. Then Marcus gets laid off. Within 47 days, and that is the actual median time it takes an American adult with no savings to reach financial crisis after a job loss, within 47 days, Marcus cannot make rent. He starts missing payments. His credit score starts sliding. He calls his parents. $95,000 a year. Financial crisis in 47 days. Now meet Diana. Diana earns $58,000 a year. She drives a used car she paid cash for. Nothing special. Gets her where she needs to go. She lives in a modest apartment on the affordable side of town. She brings lunch to work 4 days a week. She doesn't take extravagant vacations. And every single month, before she pays her rent, before she pays her phone bill, before she buys a single bag of groceries, Diana moves $600 into a low-cost index fund she barely looks at. Diana does this not because she's disciplined in some superhuman way. She does it because she set up an automatic transfer the day after payday, and the money is simply gone before she can spend it. Diana is building wealth. Marcus is performing it. That distinction between earning money and actually having it is the first and most foundational mistake almost everyone makes. We confuse income with wealth. We treat the number on our paycheck as a measure of our financial health, and it is not. It has almost nothing to do with financial health. Income is a river, wealth is the reservoir. The river can be fast and strong and beautiful. You can stand by it and feel the rush of it and be genuinely impressed by how much water is flowing through. But if you're spending it all downstream, if the outflow matches the inflow, the reservoir never fills. And the moment the river slows, a job loss, a pay cut, an unexpected medical bill, an economic downturn, you have nothing to draw from, just an empty reservoir and a memory of how good the river used to feel. Here's the number that should genuinely disturb you. The average American between the ages of 35 and 44, prime earning years, career established, presumably financially mature, has a net worth of around $91,000. That sounds reasonable until you pull it apart. About $65,000 of that figure is home equity, meaning the actual liquid, accessible, I could use this if something went wrong, financial cushion, is closer to $26,000. For a household earning, on average, nearly $80,000 a year, that's less than 4 months of income. That's the margin between stability and crisis for the average American in what should be their most financially established decade. That's not a lack of income. That's a confusion between income and wealth lived out across an entire life. I want you to stop right here and ask yourself a real question. Not a comfortable one, a real one. If your income stopped completely tomorrow, no warning, no severance, just gone, how long could you maintain your current life? Be honest. A month, 2 months, 6 months, a year? The answer to that question is the most accurate measurement of your actual financial position. Not your salary, not your job title, not the car in your driveway. That number, those months, that is where you actually stand. So what do? The fix sounds almost insultingly simple, but don't let the simplicity fool you. Before you pay anyone else, before landlords, before phone companies, before utility providers, pay yourself first, not what's left over at the end of the month, because there is never anything left over at the end of the month. First, automatically, non-negotiably, even if it's $50, even if it's $25, even if it feels laughably small. The number in the early stages matters far less than the identity shift that comes with the habit. Because when you pay yourself first, even $25, you are no longer someone who earns money and spends it. You are someone who earns money and keeps some of it. Those are different people. They develop different instincts, different habits, different relationships to money. And over 10, 20, 30 years, they end up in vastly different places. The river doesn't fill the reservoir by accident. You have to build the reservoir first. Mistake number 2, borrowing from your future self. I want to tell you about a decision I watched a friend of mine make a few years ago. I'm not going to use his real name, but I'll tell you the story exactly as it happened. He needed a new laptop for work. It was $1,400. He didn't have $1,400 sitting in his bank account, and honestly, at that stage of life, most people don't. So he did what the culture tells you to do. He put it on a credit card with a 22% annual interest rate, told himself he'd pay it off in a few months, and moved on with his life. He did not pay it off in a few months. Life happened. Other expenses came up. The minimum payment was manageable, so he made the minimum payment. And then 1 month became 3 months. 3 months became 8 months. 2 years later, after piecing together the math, he had paid the credit card company nearly $1,900 for a $1,400 laptop. A laptop that, by the way, this is the part that really stings, was by now worth maybe $350 if he tried to sell it. He paid almost $500 extra for the privilege of having the laptop immediately, instead of saving up for 3 or 4 months. $500 to avoid waiting. And during those 2 years, he'd made those minimum payments so many times, they'd become invisible. Just a background hum of money leaving his account that he'd stopped noticing. That's not unusual. That is Tuesday in modern consumer culture. That is how tens of millions of people manage their finances every month, quietly, without doing the math on what it's actually costing them. Here's what I want you to understand about consumer debt. Really understand, not just intellectually acknowledge. It is not a financial tool. It is not a bridge. It is a tax on impatience. Every month you carry a balance, you are paying a premium for the version of yourself that couldn't wait. And that premium is extracted reliably, invisibly, automatically. Think about it this way. Imagine I came to you with a proposition. Every morning, before you get out of bed, before you've had your coffee, before you've even checked your phone, I walk into your house and I take $150 off your kitchen table. You don't get to decide where it goes. You don't get anything in return. It doesn't buy you food or shelter or experiences or joy. It just disappears into a system that benefits someone else entirely. You would never agree to that deal. You'd throw me out of your house. But that is a credit card balance. That is what you agreed to when you signed the card agreement in the fine print you didn't read. Every month, reliably, money leaves your account before you can use it for anything you actually want. The scale of this in America is staggering. The Federal Reserve reported that in 2023, Americans collectively paid over $130 billion in credit card interest. Not principal, not the things they actually bought, just the interest, just the tax on impatience. $130 billion that funded nothing, built nothing, created no memories, advanced no goals. It simply transferred from people who carry balances to the financial institutions that issue the cards. But here's what I think is the most underappreciated cost of consumer debt. And it's not even the money. It's the optionality. When a significant portion of your monthly income is already committed, already spoken for by past purchases you made months or years ago, you lose the ability to respond to the future. You lose the ability to take a new opportunity that pays less upfront but opens more doors. You lose the ability to handle an emergency without going deeper into the hole. You lose the ability to say no to a job you hate, a client who disrespects you, a situation that drains you, because you need the paycheck to service the debt. Debt is the enemy of freedom. And I don't mean that in the vague philosophical way. I mean it in a very specific mechanical way. Every dollar you owe is a dollar of future income that's already been spent. Every month you carry debt is a month your future self is working to pay off your past self's decisions. You are borrowing from a future version of yourself who didn't agree to the terms. Pause here and do an honest accounting. What percentage of your monthly income goes to paying for things you already consumed? Old purchases, past meals, a vacation from last spring, a car that loses value every single day you drive it. That percentage, whatever it is, that is the portion of your future that's already been mortgaged. The path out is not complicated. It just requires the opposite of what debt does to your brain. It requires choosing discomfort now in order to buy freedom later. Make a list of every debt you have, smallest to largest. Pay the minimum on everything except the smallest one. Attack the smallest one with everything you can find. Every extra dollar, every side income, every refund check, every birthday money. When it's gone, take the payment you were making on it and add it to the next smallest debt. This is the debt snowball. And it works not just as math, but as psychology. Every debt you kill is a proof point, evidence, undeniable and personal, that you are someone who finishes what they start, someone who makes commitments to their future self and keeps them. Start there. One debt, all your focus, then move to the next. Mistake number 3, only playing financial defense. This is the mistake that nobody warns you about. And in many ways, it is the most insidious of all 3 because it wears the costume of responsibility. Think about the most financially responsible person you know. Maybe it's a parent. Maybe it's an older sibling. Maybe it's you. They have a budget. They track their spending. They save diligently. They never buy brand names when the generic is available. They comparison shop. They clip coupons when it makes sense. They've canceled every subscription they don't actively use. They are careful. They are disciplined. They do all the things financial advisors tell you to do. And many of them will still retire without enough. Not because they weren't responsible. They were, but because they only ever played defense. And here is the cold mathematical truth of personal finance that nobody says out loud. You cannot save your way to wealth. There is a hard ceiling on savings. Think about it structurally. You cannot save more than 100% of what you earn. And realistically, the most disciplined people on the planet save somewhere between 20% and 40% of their income. That is the upper boundary of playing defense. You cut the lattes, you cut the subscriptions, you bring lunch every day, you drive the used car, and eventually you've cut everything that can be cut. The defense is maximized, and you're still moving toward the goal slower than you need to. But there is no ceiling on what you can earn, none. There is no upper limit. And this asymmetry, the hard ceiling on savings versus the unlimited ceiling on income, is something most people never consciously reckon with. Let me give you a number that crystallizes this. If you invest $500 a month, starting at age 25, assuming an 8% average annual return, which is historically conservative for a diversified stock portfolio, you will have approximately $1.75 million by age 65. That same $500 a month, same discipline, same consistency, but starting at 35 instead of 25, you end up with about $745,000. Same behaviors, same amount of money saved every month. A 10-year delay in starting cost you roughly $1 million. Now here's the question that follows from that. What's the fastest way to make up ground if you're starting late, or to accelerate your timeline if you're starting on time? The answer isn't cutting more expenses. The answer is increasing what comes in. Here's the metaphor I want you to take with you. Your financial life is like a bathtub. Your expenses are the drain, money going out. Playing defense means managing the drain, making sure nothing goes out unnecessarily. That's important. You should absolutely manage the drain. But if the faucet running into the tub is slow, if your income is constrained, it doesn't matter how perfectly you've optimized the drain. The tub fills slowly regardless. And at some point, the drain work is done. The tub is as efficient as it's going to get. Playing offense means turning up the faucet, finding ways to increase the flow of water coming in. Now, I'm not talking about schemes. I'm not talking about the kind of passive income content that floods this platform. Drop shipping courses, crypto moonshots, real estate secrets that require $200,000 you don't have. I'm talking about something much more boring and much more reliable. I'm talking about getting paid more for what you already do. I'm talking about the raise conversation you've been putting off for 18 months because you're afraid of how it'll land. I'm talking about the skill you've been meaning to develop for 3 years that would make you significantly more valuable in your field. I'm talking about the freelance project you could take on weekends that would generate an extra $500 to $1,000 a month. I'm talking about building one income stream, just one, that doesn't depend entirely on your employer's goodwill and the health of one company. None of this is glamorous. None of it goes viral. But it compounds. Everything about money compounds. The debt, the savings, the investments, the skills, the income, everything. Here's your question for this section, and I want you to sit with it. What skills, knowledge, experience, or relationships do you have right now, today, not someday, that someone would pay more for? Not hypothetically, actually. Is there a conversation you've been avoiding that could change your income within the next 90 days? A conversation with your manager about a raise that's overdue? A pitch to a potential client you've been talking yourself out of? An offer you could make to someone who needs what you know? Because that conversation is sitting on the other side of the comfort trap, and it's waiting for you. The most impactful financial move most people can make is not downloading a new budgeting app. It's not optimizing their tax strategy. It's developing one skill so deeply, so seriously, so much better than the average person in their field, and then making sure they're paid what that skill is actually worth. Play defense to stop the bleeding, play offense to actually win. Both, not either or, both. I know what some of you are sitting with right now, and I'm not going to skip past it. This sounds fine in theory, but I'm genuinely stretched. I'm not buying lattes and taking fancy vacations. I'm just trying to pay rent and keep the lights on. You're telling me to save and invest and develop skills and increase my income, and I barely have time to sleep. I hear you, not as a formality, actually. Some of you are in genuinely difficult situations. Single parents carrying the financial weight of an entire family on one income. People dealing with medical debt that appeared out of nowhere and fundamentally changed the math. People in communities where good-paying jobs are genuinely scarce and the cost of living keeps rising regardless. The systemic realities are real, and I'm not here to pretend that a podcast or a YouTube video dissolves structural inequality. It doesn't. But here's what I've learned from studying personal finance seriously for years. Most people, not all, but most, have slightly more room than they believe they do. Not a comfortable amount of room, not easy room, just a little. And a little, used consistently over time, changes the math in ways that feel impossible until they don't. If you genuinely cannot save $500 a month, start with $100. If $100 is too much, start with $25 and build the habit. If income is the bottleneck, and for many people it genuinely is, start there. One conversation, one skill, one extra hour a week pointed in a slightly better direction. The danger, the real trap inside the comfort trap, is using your real constraints as permanent permission to never start. Because the math doesn't pause while you get ready. Every month that passes without a dollar invested, without a debt addressed, without an income expanding decision made, that month is gone. That compound interest didn't happen. That future version of you is a little further behind through no fault of their character, simply because the clock kept moving. You don't need perfect conditions. No one who ever built financial stability had perfect conditions. You need a first step small enough that you will actually take it today, not next month, not when things settle down, today. Find that step and take it. I want to leave you with a story, a real one. There's a species of bamboo grown in parts of China and Japan called Moso bamboo. Farmers plant the seed, water it, tend the soil, maintain it through the seasons, and for 4 years, 4 full years, they see almost nothing above the ground. A tiny shoot maybe, a suggestion of growth, but nothing that would tell you something extraordinary is coming. Anyone watching from the outside would tell the farmer they were wasting their time, that nothing was happening, that they should plant something else. But underground the bamboo is doing the only thing that matters, building roots, developing an infrastructure so vast and so deep and so interconnected that when the time comes, it can support what comes next. And then in the 5th year, the Moso bamboo grows 90 feet in 60 days. 90 feet, 60 days. Not because of anything the farmer did in year 5, because of everything the farmer did in years 1 through 4 when nothing was visible, when there was no external validation, when there was no proof it was working. The growth in year 5 is just the reward for the root building that happened in the years no one was watching. Your financial life works exactly the same way. The first year you pay yourself first. before anything else, automatically, consistently, not much changes visibly. The second year, same thing. The people around you might be buying newer cars and posting vacation photos, and from the outside, looking like they're winning the game. And you're tending your roots, patient, steady, mostly invisible. But somewhere between year 5 and year 10, the math shifts, quietly, then suddenly. Your investment account starts earning more in a month than you're contributing. The debt you've been systematically eliminating starts to disappear, and the payments you were making toward it are now freed up for things you actually choose. The income you've expanded through one skill, one conversation, one deliberate move starts to compound in ways you didn't expect. You start having options you didn't have before. The ability to say no, the ability to wait, the ability to choose. That is not luck. That is not talent. That is not a secret the wealthy are keeping from you. That is the bamboo breaking through the surface in year 5, and you planted it. The 3 mistakes we talked about today, confusing the river for the reservoir, borrowing from a future self who didn't get a vote, and only playing defense while the clock runs, they all share one root cause. They all trade long-term freedom for short-term comfort. They choose the feeling of having it together over the reality of actually building something. You don't have to make that trade anymore. You know what the mistakes are now. You can see the comfort trap. You know how it works, why it feels rational, and where the path actually leads if you follow it without questioning it. Now you have a choice, not a perfect choice, not an easy one, just a choice. And it starts with something small enough to do today. Find that thing, do it. If this changed how you think, even a little, subscribe. I post one of these every week. No fluff, no hype. Just the conversation I wish someone had started with me years earlier.